Hello and welcome to week number 3, I believe, here at the EUSCC. Bringing you guys Donkey Hoof and Cold Llamas for our first set. J-Mac Tucker and Alpha Jackal on the cast for you today. And looking at these two teams, AJ, there's something that we need to see in both of them, and that's improvement.
Yeah, I mean, for Donkey Hoof, it's a bit of a different story. They showed not much fight in week 1, but week 2, they showed a lot of resolve, showed a lot of improvements in their plays and their drafts more specifically. It's just on them, can they build onto that and take a game off an established SEC team rather than one of their SOC brethrens?
Right, and I think onto the flip side of that one, Cold Llamas have been showing that they have signs of life, but they haven't really gotten that win just yet. They've been struggling in their first 2 weeks, and there's a chance for them to get themselves onto the board, but most importantly, I think the story is for Donkey Hoof to see how they can improve from week 1 and week 2, now against another established, not number 1, number 2 seed of the EU side of it.
Yeah, this should be a good sort of litmus test for them. Have those first 2 weeks a little less settled their nerves? Have they settled their expectations? Have they got themselves into a steady flow in their drafts, in their comms, in their playstyle, to the point where they can push on and secure themselves in a nice, comfortable spot in the middle of that pack?
Right, so week number 1, they played against, a top-seeded team, the Poppies. And then they played against one of the lower-end teams with the Smiley Face last week. Now they're kind of hitting that middle pack. How did they stand up against one of the established SCC teams here? And how does Cold Llamas adapt and improve on kind of their struggles they've been having in these first couple of weeks?
Well, I think the best way to decide on that is just jump straight into those picks and bans, because we got them ready for you. And it's going to be an interesting take on this one. Do Cold Llamas go for something a bit more standard to try and close the game out a bit more professionally? Or do they sort of underestimate Donkey Hoof here and go for something that is a bit more out there, a bit more janky, something they want to practice in a live environment for the first time?
I think for me, one of the biggest struggles I've seen with Cold Llamas is a little bit of kind of lower end into the mid lane, not taking anything away from the mid laner, but there's been so much kind of disrespect thrown towards the enemy mid laner, where they're just always seem to be allowing their enemy mid to free cast in the middle of fights. They're never really getting that dive in there. And I'd like to see that adaptation from Cold Llamas this week, is finally get in there and deal with these carries that just got to sit there and free cast on them in these first couple weeks.
Well, it's no surprise to see that Cold Llamas are focused on the Merlin. So far from Donkey Hoof, we haven't really seen much variety out of their mid lane picks. We've seen them pick Oleron, we've seen them pick Merlin, and outside of that, nothing too fancy. So the Bakasura and Morik are going to join on side those Merlin bands. You have your Moja and Persephone on the other side. I'm still looking for that Cthulhu pickup to potentially be taken away. That's just going to leave open a wide array of opportunities. Like Arachne will be left open on the table. Nemesis has seen some prominence recently. Cupid has seen a lot of success in the SPL recently. Hasn't transitioned that well into the SCC, but maybe it's just taken those teams a couple of weeks to get used to it. But as I said, Oleron and Merlin, with what we've seen from Donkey Hoof, taking both of those options away are Cold Llamas. Now,
do you think that this Oleron's going to go onto Pretty Prime, or do you think this is going to go over into the duo lane and put that one onto the Hunter?
I think if I'm Cold Llamas, if I'm the coach in this position, I'm definitely holding on to Oleron as a flex pick opportunity here. Does fantastic in both lanes, and you kind of want to gauge his matchup, because if he's going up into the mid lane, you want to make sure that there's no one that easily sticks onto him when there's ultimate. If that is the case, then you shift him over to a dual lane where it's a bit safer. But if he's got that freedom to rotate mid and control and dominate that mid lane early on, stick him in mid and run the show through him.
Now, this is a very early kind of drawing of their hands for Donkey Hoof. They had drafted both Amma and Sobek. Typically, you'd see one and have that slight bit of flexibility towards it, but with drafting both of them, you still kind of don't know exactly where the other is going, but you know that you've locked in your solo and your support right off the bat. Are these the two calls that you go for right off?
Both are really strong picks right now. Amaterasu has shown quite high win rate percentages in ranked, and has started to make waves in sort of like a competitive setting. Cupid, we've just seen locked in there as well. But Amaterasu can also very nichely go into the jungle, so it's not guaranteed set in stone that Amaterasu and Sobek are going to be your solo support of choice. But it's a very high likelihood. And with the Cupid being there as well, I imagine it's going to be Sobek in that support role. Just a kickflip into the heart bomb. It's a very dangerous, deadly combo at level 2. So no surprise to see that Cold Llamas are locked in the Uller and the Terror to try and negate some of that aggression early on.
And we have seen that Yakin does like these more aggressive style supports, so Sobek would make sense to throw over into that duo lane. to keep it locked in going into the bans. Jormungandr, once again, keeps making it all the way to the second round. It really feels like the EU side of the SEC is the only one that really fears this Jormungandr enough to ban it, but never enough to really pick it in this first phase. It always seems it makes it to this second round.
And it's quite a strange thing, considering whenever Jormungandr does get played, he's a monster to deal with, and then he's instantly first banned or first picked in the next sort of set. But over on the other side, Cold Llamas taking a shot at the mid lane here, again not allowing Donkeyhoof's mid laner to breathe, taking away the Thought, taking away the hero, forcing out the Nemesis pick here. That's going to go to Preds in the jungle. Amaterasu over in that solo lane. Could still go support, but most likely it's going to be that Sobek support, like we said earlier. It's up to Cold Llamas to finish up their draft. Ola, they stole that flexibility. Cullen going to go into that solo lane. Has positive matchups against both the Sobek and the Amaterasu. I really like this pick.
And a Hunbots to round it out. I really like this matchup going against Cupid with no CC immunity, Nemesis with no CC immunity. That Fear No Evil is going to force very early Purification beads onto him. I love this Hunbots pick in this draft.
I really like it as well. Like I said, no CC immunity on two of them. You're forcing out CC immune ults from the Sobek and Amaterasu, most likely I'm going to take beads. Raija makes it all the way down to 10th pick here. That just shows how far he has dropped from his most recent nerfs. Just taking off a slight bit of damage on that pick, crescendo. It is, a lot of, early game pressure that's taken away from this Raija.
Oh. With the picks and bans floated through, we're going to go and cut it right into the game. Game number 1, Cold Llamas and Donkey Hoof, and straight into the purple buff we go as Streak Up and Genetics will make sure to get their buff for them. Now, we've been seeing a lot of off and on with the teams of whether they want to do the Ghost Minion start or, give it to the support or kind of split it out here. It looked like Genetics Dinosaur wanted to give that one over, but instead, going to take a little bit of poke here in the lane.
Yeah, I think you expect it to go this way. I mean, you pick Cupid and you pick Sobek for the pressure in the lane, but the second you're up against the Ulla, who's got fantastic poke ability and good clear early on, just better clear than the Cupid early on, you're receding pressure here. You're really relying on Sobek getting that blink off for that pluck onto either the Terror or the Ulla, just to then get that harp on, but you need to wait until level 3, level 4 before that. Otherwise, you're just going to get blown up.
Well, one thing that we do notice, it's not Yakin playing this week. It's going to be Dinosaur taking in the place in that support roles, and another player who really loves to shine and excel on that Sobek. So not surprised to see that one roll over into the duo lane as well.
Yeah, and Dinosaur, back on Team Rival on the console side of things back in the day, was really a standout player for that squad. I mean, he was a very vocal in-game leader, and maybe that's something which Donkey Hoof, who will have obviously scrimed with him in the week leading up to this match, were kind of missing during the middle of the games. When they fell behind, they lacked a bit of direction, lacked a bit of focus. Dinosaur's going to whip those boys back into shape and bring them back in line. So it's not just enough to put Donkey Hoof behind now, you have to put them into the ground.
You really do need to take that on quick and early, because we've seen how their late game, they really do struggle. Once it gets past that 15-20 minute mark, if they don't have a lead, we've seen them really just kind of fall apart here. And this is a draft out of Cold Llamas that wants to go towards that later stage. You have an Ola run, you have an Uller and a Terra. I mean, these gods are going to get much better as the game goes on. You have the similar style out of Donkey Hoof, but they haven't had much success getting to that late game.
No, I don't think they really want to get to that late game stage either. Yes, they have some fantastic picks in the Raija and the Nemesis skills really well into the late game, but their tower damage as well as their objective pressure, I'd say, is kind of lacking when it comes to facing up against Cold Llama's draft. Especially when they're trying to fight into that sanctified field. It's just a bit too much for them, and that's a really strange play, giving up the purple buff there.
Yeah, that's a lot of respect thrown towards just a singular Terra. Now, there's not a lot of ward coverage up here, so they don't really know that it's only Genetics up here, but they're really giving some respect over to Genetics. Great pluck there by Dinosaur, making sure that he can't activate the wall. So purple buff does manage to go on to Raiden. Jump in from Streak Up. He's going to get the axe toss onto Dinosaur. One more auto is all that's needed. And Streak Up with first blood for Donkey Hoof. Or for Cold Llamas.
And Donkey Hoof, recipients of the first death of the game. And that's just come off the back from a great play for Genetics. Delaying Donkey Hoof, making them in 2 minds. Also, Streak Up jumps in, is the savior of the day with the first blood. Going for the Mage's Blessing, which is why Dinosaur just took so much damage there.
Bevy's taking quite a bit of poke from Maniac on the Cucullin, a very aggressive solo laner compared to the Amma, who wants to just kind of sit back and farm for the majority of the game.
Tarasu kind of does also want to fight once she hits about level 6, level 7 in the lane. But you don't want to find into a Cucullin, because the second you start fighting into one, he just gets his passive charged up a bit quicker, he transforms earlier. At that point, you're really just asking for some trouble. And once Amaterasu came into the mid-season and the Berserker Shield got changed, lost a lot of the sustain, lost a lot of the things which made her able to fight so successfully in the lane. But come back a bit stronger now, that it's gone more towards this Bruiser-style build. That really suits Amaterasu going into the mid and late game.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of things like, you know, attack speed boots into Shoguns, Kasari, Frostbound, just to give yourself a ton of attack speed and make sure you stick to them like glue no matter what. You expect we'll see a similar build path come out here for the solo laners. Maniac blinks in just to get the ultimate off to clear the way before he loses that transformation.
I don't think he's going to be missing that blink anytime soon. I mean, the Nemesis can come over and potentially look for a gank, but to the same point, do you really want to use Nemesis and Amaterasu to kill the Cucullin this early on?
Yeah, probably not in this instance. And like you said, I mean, it's Blink. It's a little bit of a long cooldown, but that means there's no teleport available for Maniac for opting into that relic early on. Ultimate onto Pretty Prime into the mid lane. That's going to get the Sanctified Field and the Purification Beads, but ultimate out of the mid laner. Gunner trying to fire those shots, but it's just not going to be enough. Fails enough to dissuade them using his ultimate as well, just to push them away.
I like that play from Pretty Prime. Didn't panic, you know, waited for the right opportunity to use his beads and then used out his Sanctified Field. Traps in Preds, traps in Gunter a bit, which just allows Fails to get a monster Fear No Evil off, which turns the tide of that fight. Speaking of forcing out the ultimates, Dinosaur forced into lurking in the waters early just because of Genetics Wall Clap, giving a lot of pressure over here on this duo side is this Terra.
And Genetics walking over yet again to try and disrupt them at this red buff. Unable to steal that one away, so credit will go to Donku so they secure their buff. But, I mean, this has been a lot of respect thrown towards, again, one Terra. Genetics has been able to force them off their purple buff now twice.
It's almost forced him off the red buff as well. Just the second it was cleared, everyone spread out, everyone dashed away back in towards that tier 2 tower in the mid lane. And that's just credit to the ward coverage that's come out already for Cold Llamas. You have a look on that left-hand side, 4 very aggressive wards, one even covering the entrance to that left-hand side jungle between the tier 1 and tier 2 towers in mid. They really are gearing up for this red buff invade consistently. They know where their pressure is, they know where they can exploit it, and they want to be looking for that Gold Fury the second they can take a good fight.
Maniac level 8 now into the solo lane. Just been getting a little bit more farm here. Just a tad bit more, getting some of those back camps, making sure to get those totems as well for his team. Make sure he can stay just that little bit ahead of Bevy throughout. In mid lane, they'll go ahead and head on back while Streaker grabs the back camp and makes his way back into the lane. Looking at the builds, you do see the Transcendence build coming out of Streak Up.
Yeah, a lot of ADCs have started to shy away from the Transcendence build, going more into the Devourer's Gauntlets early on, just because they can start building that attack speed. Maybe even they're going into the crit, but it's starting to fall out of favor just a bit more recently, with ADCs favoring going into kin-size attack speed focus builds, which is rounded off with that Silver Branch Bow, a bit of a new tech coming in very recently to the ADC meta.
A lot of attack speed, especially on a god who has a stem built in, can really get some big stacks on that Silver Branch. Not sure if we'll see that same build path in this game between these two hunters. Don't really have too much attack speed built into their kit. You need a little bit between both of them, but not a whole lot. Gunter, 2 levels down, or about a level and a half down to Pretty Prime, and just from the pressure that they've exerted into the mid lane.
Pretty Prime's been able to solo farm for the most part. Gunter's had to have, you know, either Dinosaur or Preds be around him at times. And that's just shown in the level disparities. As you pointed out, maybe even 1.5 levels down, Preds gets a kill onto Maniac. So they do end up ganking over here on the solo side, using both ultimates in the process, get the Stone with kill on the board, but it's a seed pressure over the left-hand side, most importantly. It's a good gank, it's a good kill, gets them on the board, but it's also, I don't think it's at the right time.
And again, it's just allowing this duo lane to keep doing what they've done this entire game. Invade purple buffs. Make sure that Raiden is missing out on every bit of farm outside of the wave. I don't think Raiden's even been able to get a back camp with how little he's been able to leave this lane. So Streak Up is just getting all this extra farm that he's basically been uncontested for.
Yeah, and you know, it's gonna be really difficult for them to get some pressure over here. If, you know, again, they needed the early rotation from them from Gunter. They needed early rotations from Preds, but that just wasn't really going to happen with both of them picking these mid-game oriented gods. I mean, Raijin lost a lot of his power in that early game thanks to those nerfs he received quite recently. Nemesis really struggles to get off the mark to begin with, especially if it goes into a brawler's beat stick rather than going into the golden blade like we sometimes see. And they see a replay of that kill. It's a quick dash from Preds and Maniacs no more. They pick this dual lane of Cupid and Sobek to almost guarantee themselves early pressure, and it doesn't work out because of one pick, the Terror.
Looks like they're going to get a pick on a Dinosaur as well, just caught alone into the mid lane. Fear No Evil used just to push him further towards Cold Llamas and put their second kill on the board, that one going into the hands of Pretty Prime.
Yeah, and this whole match is really doing wonders for them. It's not just the Terror that's caused all this pressure. It's the whole match who's rushing to that Yone's Wrath. You know, that 120-second cooldown on that Fear No Evil is brutal. So the first one, maybe even two casts, you know, you're really feeling that. But that's why we see this Yone's Wrath, this Yone's rush here coming out from fails. Just get that 20% CDR online as quickly as possible. And now these CC immune ultimates on Dinosaur and Bevy Monster can be forced out consistently. Gunter's probably also going to have to use his. Most importantly, loads of beats burning opportunities.
Well, Genetics gonna take a little bit of damage, has the Heart Bomb, gets out of the Fields of Love, but the walls come up quick enough so he doesn't get yanked back by Dinosaur, but they're still continuing the chase. Fails comes through with the Sacred Monkey Toss, but goes into the back onto Preds, doing enough damage and forcing Dinosaur to back away from Genetics. Wrapping around the corner is Pretty Prime. He's got the Sanctified Fields, and Preds has no way to get out of it. He'll fall down. Second kill on the board for Pretty Prime. And the Sacred Monkey Toss from Fails once again teleports in with the last basic. 2 more kills on the board for the Cold Llamas.
And they would have got away with it if it wasn't for that pesky Terror living yet again. Genetics coming up big here in this game, and 4-1 on the scoreboard doesn't do it justice for Cold Llamas, who've had an excellent game so far. They're going to get rewarded here with the Scorn Fury. Gunter making a late rotation over onto the left-hand side, but that's just to get his back camps. He's not wanting to contest this objective whatsoever.
Genetics was so fast on getting that wall out there. It was as the pluck was connecting, the walls come up to make sure he doesn't get yanked back thanks to his pass. I mean, that's just a level of play on Terra you don't see too often. It's what can really keep the good Terras from the great Terras, is how well do you utilize your monolith and your walls to prevent things like a Sobek. And honestly, I love this counter pick of the Terra into Sobek.
Yeah, I love that. I really do like the draft for Donkey. It's just, it's got that one issue of they're relying on these picks in the early game, and they cannot get the picks whatsoever because the one target which has really been out of position and favorable for them to look for the puck on is Genetics on this Terra. The only thing that would make it worse is if it was a Jormungandr, because then there's absolutely no chance.
I mean, good luck catching a Jorm. You're having a hard enough time with the Terra. Good luck catching a Jormungandr who can go halfway across the world when he presses his ultimate. I mean, at that stage, it's just too hard to deal with. Another thing that's really difficult for them to deal with, 2-level lead in the mid and jungle right now. And even though Maniac took that early spill, he's keeping up a little bit behind compared to his opposition. But with Pretty Prime with 2 kills on the board for himself, has built up a very substantial lead.
This is where, if I'm Donkey, if I'm starting to try and transition the game over onto this right-hand side and utilize the fact that Bevy Monster has this lead, the only lead available on the team, and try and expand it a bit more, maybe even convert it into a tower on the right-hand side, convert it into an objective, streak up looking for an Axel to Dinosaur, just about misses, and just stuck under the mid tower, stuck in a very confined space in their own jungle right now at Donkey. Cold Llamas, they don't feel like they're 4K ahead, they feel like they're 14 at this point.
I mean, just the level of confidence that they have, where Genetics wrapped around the backside of the mid Harpies on that right-hand side to walk into Dinosaur. I mean, he just does not care at this point. He's got about a level and a half up, got a 2 tiers of an item up ahead of him as well. So you can see he's finished that Lotus Crown, now going into a Cloak. So opting to go away from the Gauntlet of Thieves in this early rush on the Terra.
Oh, well, I really do like the Lotus Crown, though. I mean, just giving some extra protections the second you press your heal, just it increased how much more difficult it is to deal with it, especially when penetration hasn't been built online, you know, super early so far for Donkey. The only 2 items so far of penetration are going to be that Brawler's Beat Stick on Preds, as well as that Spear of the Magus so far on Gunter.
not to say you're always guaranteed to get that proc of the Lotus Crown because you got to dash through the monolith, so you're going to get at least one tick of heal before the dash goes off. So you're guaranteed for that extra protection onto it. And Gold Llamas are guaranteed that Pyromancer, as there's no contest from Donkey Hoof, not even a chance for them to get in there and take that.
Heavy Monster was the only one around, but good ultimate from Maniac, a good Spear of Mortal Pain does stop any form of contest from coming out. Heavy Monster did really want to contest. That probably should have been him using his Dazzling Offensive to get some CC immunity, just run in there, force him off the objective, and probably try and take it himself. But realizes if he does that, he is dead meat. He's going to die, and that's probably going to lead to even more losses for him. So I agree with the sort of conservative play there.
Oh. Dinosaur and Fred's going to take a little bit of poke there from Genetics as they go for those Oracle Harpies in the mid camp as well, just to get that little bit of extra farm for him. Mid camp on the flip side for Cold Llamas will be dropped. That'll give it over to Pretty Prime, level 15 at only 14 minutes in right now, exceeding that level of minute that everybody loves to strive for in the game.
It's always a good feeling when you hit level 20 at about 17 minutes. It shows you just had like a really good game.
Dinosaur just going to juke right past the first shot from Pretty Prime, but Pretty Prime's got the Ring of Hecate and the Typhon's Fang online already, so he has plenty of sustain to make sure to keep himself alive. Red buff is down on the top side, so Cold Llamas don't really have an invasion target aside from, well, what else but purple buff as they go for probably their 12th one in this game, even though it's not possible for it. It feels like it's the 12th one.
It feels like this whole entire left-hand side jungle has just got Cold Llamas written all over it. And so far, the writing is not looking good for Donkey Hoof in terms of this game. Yes, they've stemmed the bleeding right now. It's just sitting at 4,500 the lead, not growing too much. But that's because objectives are currently down, just towers are remaining for them to take, unless they're all to go for a 15-minute Fire Giant. But the next big one is just about to spawn. That Primal Fury is coming up any second now, just 17 seconds until it does respawn. And I imagine Cold Llama is going to be looking and waiting for that one to come up.
Double stun into the double monolith, break into the mid lane. Pretty Prime, though, under half health, and he just used to beat Dan Dieguez, but it's not enough to save him from Bevy Monster, who will be able to get the kill with the dazzling offensive. Gunter just barely managed to make them their way out of the fight. That'll be a kill on the board for Donkey Hoof, their second one now, looking towards the Primal Fury.
There's a good rotation from Bevy Monster, allows that to happen. Blink from Dinosaur looks to just get the beats and does get the beats there. Also going to be able to get the dash. They do manage to pick up Genetics as well. Pred's low, manages to get out but fails. Monkey Toss Teleport allows it to get there and dealing out Preds for a 2-for-1 trade overall. Support for Jungler in that mini engagement. Donkey Hoof still feel good about doing this Primal Fury, thanks to that Fear No Evil being used.
Well, they still got to deal with Maniac and Streak up as well. To blink into the back from Maniac. Donkey Hoof will get the Gold Fury, but what will they lose in the process of it? Streak going on to Dinosaur.
Just sack him.
Others of the team will move away. Let Dinosaur fall here if you have to. Makes it a 2-for-2 trade, and a Fury keeps it in favor of Donkey Hoof for it. The most important thing is they got that Primal Fury.
Yeah, they did. They also picked themselves up some valuable kills, especially onto Pretty Prime, who was level 16, slows him down a bit. Gunter's still not really directly involved in those kills officially. He wasn't officially involved in that mid-kill onto Pretty Prime, but so far still at 0-0 and 0. Has yet to put his stamp on the game as this Raijin, but he is getting to the point now where I do feel he is coming online a bit more. That Divine Rune's going to prove wonders for this healing composition that Cold Llamas have drafted.
Pretty Prime just going to continue the farm game alongside Genetics. He's going to go for the mid camps to try and get himself a little bit of extra XP. And we all love to watch Guardians punching a camp for 12 minutes just to make sure they can drop that one. But Genetics will make sure to grab that experience for himself and keep himself into the game. 2 levels up to Dinosaur right now, so he has access to that second relics up for Shell and Heavenly Agility.
But just adding the Shell to his arsenal, I like to pick up a lot, especially when he gets that upgraded. It means that if Preds ever does blink in, Shell comes out, 2 block stacks added to his carries, and Nemesis can't really do much outside of slice and dice and a couple of dashes, and that'll be it. You really just are relying on your basic attack cancels as Nemesis in towards that late game if you're looking, and then just a few more basic attacks to carry on if you have basic up against the enemy ADC, and you will win that trade 99% of the time. But with those 2 extra block stacks, it means no Fatalis proc, it means no Hydrogen Element proc, it means no Iron type damage proc. We're getting the first bit of damage after you ulted. It's going to delay that damage for a bit too long, and Preds could die because of the shell.
We do see him opting towards more of a ability-focused build onto with the Brawler's Beat Stick and the Aaron Dive. Bevy going to get stunned under the tower, and that forces the quick, dazzling offensive out of the solo laner. So Bevy forced to retreat on the tower for a small rotation. I say small, but almost everybody from Cold Llamas making their way to this side of the map to start up this Pyromancer, Pretty Prime, and Streak Up. They're more than enough to take that one down. Streak Up throws the axe against the wall, so he misses Dinosaur. Dinosaur has the pluck to be able to get himself out of there, back to the safety of his side of the map.
Yeah, and they, well, Cold Llamas extend their lead back up to just over that 4K mark. So about 3.5 minutes of respite there for Donkey before it's back to square one. But it is a delay. It is more of a delay which allows them to build up some more of their items and get to that late mid stage, which is exactly where they want to be with this composition. It's where I believe it's going to be its strongest. I mean, we haven't really seen much out of Cupid either. Just been a bit, bit pushed back in his lane. And I think once it gets to these team fights, when everything goes around that right hand side on that fire giant, you're going to see a lot more from this Cupid pick. You're going to see a lot more from this Raijin pick. You're going to see exactly what this Donkey Hoof draft is all about.
Telkine ring online already for Pretty Prime. Is this the ring that you rush on this god? Or normally I would imagine, the demonic grip, that extra little bit of pen, but a bit of confidence is giving him extra boost of power.
I like the Telkine's ring because you already have the Typhon's Fang for 10% penetration. If you're going to be focusing on just the squishies to begin with, then you don't necessarily need to get on that extra % penetration early on. It's not going to hurt him to get that ring, and that's going to be the next one in line. Doesn't necessarily need the Fatalis ring, but he can always go into that one as well if he so wishes.
Well, Phil's just going to throw the Sacred Monkey at Bevy, just for a little bit of poke damage, and see what he can get out of the bounces from there. Mid-camp's being fought over by both teams. It looks like it'll go the way of Cold Llamas. Actually splitting one of those over with Donkey Hoof, so mixing that experience between the two teams. But all 10 players in the matchup moving into the mid lane. We know what that next target there's going to be. It's that tier 1 tower. It might be a kill into the back as Maniac dives on the Gunner in the back, puts him at a quarter health, but Genetics has to be careful back here to make sure to help out his carries. Bevy Monster uses their ultimate. Dinosaur as well with his own, with the Lurking the Waters down. But that's Sanctified Fields and only, I almost said only Sanctified Fields, but Genex also using his ultimate in that lane. Meanwhile, Gunner, the only one with an ult left on Donkey Hoof.
Gunner, the only reason he has his ult is because he literally had to run away and back to base from that engage from Maniac. He also did end up using a Spear of Mortal Pain at the very beginning of the fight. Fails, just making sure that Preds didn't rotate in too aggressively from the jungle side. Still managed to hold onto his Fear No Evil, and Streak Up doesn't have an ultimate. It's just some stance changes, and the Gold Fury respawns over here on the left-hand side. This is exactly what Cold Llamas were wanting.
Well, and Fails with that Fear No Evil is going to make this dangerous for Donkey Hoof. But Cold Llamas are the one backing up and paying respects towards Donkey Hoof, recognizing that mid lane ultimate is also a big threat to them if they want to go for this Gold Fury. So instead, they'll look back to going to farming up. You can see 2 to 3 players heading over towards that red and now over towards left-hand side. But the Fury is still the primary target for these teams. You can see everybody's grouping around. Dinosaur has gone back to base. I'm not sure if they spotted that on a ward, but it's a very quick, immediate turnaround call for Cold Llamas. Got it. Gold Fury is gone.
That bursted so quickly, but that's exactly what you do if you have 2 hunters on your team. It just, objectives die. You leave the tower for a second, it's gone. You leave the fire channel alone for 3 seconds, it's gone. You leave the Gold Fury alone for a second, it's gone already. Just sort of raw power that comes out from their base attacks, and that wasn't even the quickest they could do it. Don't forget, if Oleron uses that Sanctified Field, he gains more attacks. He gains like a good amount of increase for attack speed of his 40% extra, and it just rails on these objectives if he gets that off.
I mean, the amount of time it took to shred down. As soon as they started up, Bevy Monster immediately 180 dashed over, and by the time he got to the Fury, it was down. And note, it wasn't like he was all the way at purple buff. He was just on the back side of that Gold Fury pit. So that's how fast that objective got burned down by this Cold Llamas team.
And that should be a wake-up call for Donkey Hoof just to keep their eyes on the objectives 24/7 and don't give your opponents, that much freedom, especially if they have this sort of drafted composition. They've learned that mistake once. That's fine. It happens to even the best of teams. But they need to make sure it doesn't happen again, especially on this Fire Giant.
Looking for something on the Maniac. That's going to be the Spear of Mortal Pain out. They're making a counter rotation here for Cold Llamas to try and defend the solo laner. They got one ultimate out. Fails using his ultimate somewhere amongst the fight, as that's also down. Not sure where or why he used it, but the Fire Giant, very risky call by Donkey Hoof. Maniac still in that transform state, trying to make his way in. Fails is here. The Fire Giant does go down to Donkey Hoof. Bevy Monster at half health. Dazzling offensive just to retreat back to the safety of his team. But Genetics is still here. Dashing against the Monolith Break onto two of them. Bevy Monster blocked off by the walls of Genetics and taken down. Streak Up getting the kill for it. But the sacrificial lamb for Donkey Hoof means everybody else gets out.
Yeah, 4 men with the Fire Giant. There was a bit of a gamble there, rivaling the objective of Donkey Hoof, but they managed to come out on top with it. Even get a tier 1 tower on the right-hand side. Preds could still continue a split push before electing to now back off to base. Cold Llamas aren't happy about that situation. Get the mid-tier 1, get the mid-tier 2, and are looking to get this mid-Phoenix. And without Bevy Monster for the next 30 seconds, I reckon they can actually still take this.
There's not really much of a defense Donkey Hoof can put up with all of their ultimates down. Gunner taking a bit of poke as well as Genetics. Minions coming through, but Cold Llamas are going to respect the defense potential out of Donkey Hoof and just back away and strip away this jungle yet again, keeping Donkey Hoof on the back foot. They have the Fire Giant, but they're still 6,000 gold down.
Yeah, Fire Giant, it would make up for about 5,000 gold at most in terms of items, levels, and everything in between. If we were giving it a monetary value of how much power it would give you, for example. So, despite the fact that they do have the Fire Giant down, if you add that 5,000 on Donkey Hoof, they're still behind by about 1,500 gold. And that is something you can fight into for sure. It's pretty much a tied game, but that's only for the next 2.5 minutes. After that, Donkey Hoof lose considerable amounts of their, wealth that makes this game an even game, and just switches over to Cold Llamas having a ridiculous lead.
Not just that, they've lost one of their members, so you can take that 5,000 gold and even mark that down to 4,000 as Bevy Monster, who doesn't necessarily need that Fire Giant, but the extra sustain that can be onto your tanks is so important, especially for a god like Amaterasu. Once they dash in there, they're kind of all or nothing once that ultimate gets dropped in.
Yeah, and if you have a look at Bevy Monster's build, it's heavy on the bruiser side of things, not so heavy on the tank side of things. Just a lot of health, a bit of protection sprinkled in there, but it is a bit of power on top of that as well, thanks to the sledge and thanks to the Berserker shield, which did get a change, but still elected to be built here.
This is a lot of damage built up for Streak Up as well. And to round out the build with an Odysseus bow. So those little lightning bounces are going to be hitting really hard in the middle of these team fights.
Oh my lord. That is... How much power does he have with that build? I mean, that's got to be somewhere in like the high 300s.
Yeah, I imagine somewhere probably around 320 to 350 power onto Streak Up right now. Gunner going to get caught by the Monolith. Beads out and under half health. Just from Genetics, you can see... a lot. 352, I believe I saw onto it. Maniac gonna get the Spear of Mortal Pain, and it's gonna get the Fields of Love out of Raiden and the ultimate out of Bevy Monster, but fails.
Oh, big pick.
Gets picked up by Preds in the mid lane. Solo kill for the jungler.
That's a big pickup there from the side of Donkey Hoof. They get the Fear Weevil out as well and still get that kill. And that goes on to Preds. Fire Giant wearing off in the next 43 seconds. So Donkey Hoof, they need to make a play. It's going to happen right now over on this Primal Fury. Cold Llamas, they look to be giving this one up. Just allowing this objective to fall down in favor of Donkey Hoof gives them a bit more of a path into the game. We can see exactly what happened on this kill onto Fails over right now on the bottom of your screen.
Oh, looks like the tanks are going to walk away. Fails, or Preds, just looking for, I don't know, anything here into the mid lane. He blinks and gets a quick ultimate in the double dash to chase down. Beats the ultimate immediately, and well, that's all she wrote as a Hoon bots. When you don't have your jump anymore and it gets dashed out immediately, I mean, that's all you could do, just turn and fight. And unfortunately for Fails, Preds 1v1 is a little bit stronger when that Fear No Evil's down.
Yeah, I thought Dinosaur had a part to play in that kill, but it looks like it was just a good old-fashioned solo kill. Jungle v jungle, mono v mono, and one comes down on top, and Preds leading the charge here. Gonna go over towards this Pyromancer secured by Donkey Hoof, who, week one didn't look like they fit into the SEC. I think everyone could sort of agree to that, but this time they're showing that they're here to play. They're showing that they're here to really stand out and make a name for themselves, and they look the part here.
I mean, again, it's really hard for a team coming up from the SOC to when you fight against the Poppies in week number 1, I mean, the only thing that may have been worse for them is going against Belt Slap in week number 1. But and when you have that kind of competition week number 1, it's going to be rough. It's kind of one of those, let's just see what we can do. You know, these guys are the best of the best in our region for this. Let's see what we can do against it and then look to improve. And that's all we've seen from them so far. Each of these weeks has been improvement. They were able to take a game off of Smiley Face. Now they're looking like they have a chance to take a game off of Cold Llamas here, who would be, well, I believe, the 4th seed right now in their region. Dinosaur kind of in the middle of everybody. Manages to find that pluck to get out. And Genetics and Maniac taking a bit of poke here from Gunter.
So far, Donkey Hoof have the positional advantage over on this Fire Giant. Genetics and the rest of Corn Llamas looking to move their way into the pit here. Try and get a bit of poke, and they're going to poke out raided about half. Lincoln from Dinosaur starts to fight onto Street Cup. Looks to have secured, got his beads. Sacrifice Field is going to create a big zone here. The Corn Llamas fighting.
The only people going into it are the tanks who are using their CC immunity. Bevy leaving out the backside. Maniac down to about a quarter health as he's in the middle of the Fire Giant pit. That forces the dash out of Preds and Dino, but fails, finds right into the back, and is looking for Gunter, but Bevy's there for the defense to clean him up, making it a 1-for-1 trade. But the health bars on the side of Cold Llamas are a lot healthier. Preds gonna get his back stopped, and Streak Up finds the shot over the top, making it a 2-for-1. And now the Fire Giant started up. Great hail of arrows coming out of that Hunter. Bevy Monster, the only one here to try and defend against this. Dinosaur's making a rotation over. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get there fast enough. They've got to burst this down fast. They got to commit everything to take this Fire Giant down, and they will. Cold Llamas get the credit. Bevy gets hit by the Axe Toss out of Streak Up and will fall down quickly. Dinosaur gets destroyed by the damage out of Pretty Prime. Looking for an opportunity, a window to get through, but another stun out of Genetics, and Streak Up will clean it up. Pretty Prime with another kill.
And that's probably going to be currency here for this mid-Phoenix, maybe even the game. Yes, Raiders just respawned. Preds coming up in 13 seconds, but it's going to be a 3 versus 4. Fails still making his way all the way up from the mid lane after his untimely death. But this Phoenix is as good as gone. Could even be the Titan if they were feeling, brave enough. They do have 2 basic attack-based gods, but they're going to think better of it. 4 structures still remain, excluding Phoenix's. 2 towers on either side of the map here. So the Titan's going to be having a lot of protections, a lot of health. They want to try and shred some of that before they look in the end.
I mean, that was 300 damage in auto to the Phoenix by just Streak Up alone. That doesn't even include how much damage Pretty Prime was doing to it, or how much damage, even the tanks were popping onto. I mean, that was a quick mid lane Phoenix taken down by Cold Llamas with Fire Giant around their waist. They're looking to possibly close this game out with this one buff. They still got 4 towers on the map, so that Titan is very healthy and very tanky right now.
Yeah, but you have a look at that left-hand side tier 1. It's looking extremely weak on its last bricks, so that's probably going to be the first one to get blown to smithereens. Maybe should be done by the minions here, because a huge wave has been built up just from leaving the lanes alone to their own devices. Minions coming in right now. Tower's taking some damage, and down it goes. So Titan loses a tiny bit of health and protections from nothing, and this tier 2 tower is probably going to follow suit.
You can see everybody from Cold Llamas rotating over to the left-hand side. Purple buff just being dropped just for the extra experience and the buff. Fails to clean out the minion wave so they can push forward to this tier 2. They got the Fire Giant, not the Enhanced Fire Giant buff yet. They managed to take it a little too early just because Bevy Monster was there and they couldn't guarantee it. It looked like they were trying to delay for the Enhanced Fire Giant, but with the amount of risk with everybody from Donkey Hoof rotating in, they just kind of had to go for it then. Instead, they look towards this Oni Fury after that tier 2 goes down. We get some even further enhanced minions into that mid lane.
Raiden elected to split push on that right-hand side. Doesn't look to go for the tier 2 tower, though. The call was from the back. And back he will. Gunter looks to be trying to get out of a bad situation with the rest of the Cold Llamas. Push up aggressively onto the tanks and back onto the left-hand side. It was all a bait onto that Oni Fury, which they did manage to secure. So 5 minions really spawning in that mid lane. And just the next spawn, they'll be enhanced.
Raiden taking a ton of damage between the carries and the tanks. Raiden gets dropped by Fails, who makes a dive into the back. Beads to make sure he can keep diving onto Gunter. Needs one more basic and Fails will find it. Bevy Monster, the next target for them. But he manages to find his way back to the fountain. Left side Phoenix down, mid down. Only 2 towers left on the map and 1 more bird, but they might just be looking for the end. 40 seconds left until rain spawns. 45 on Gunter, using the monolith for sustain. Gonna get the Lotus Crown proc. Blink in the back 5 fails, but he gets choked down immediately. The stun is enough to take him down. Genetics with the credit for the kill. Titan down to half health, and there's nothing that Dinosaur or Bevy can do. Game 1 is gonna go over to the Cold Llamas in this first best of 3 set.
Cold Llamas take it out, but it wasn't easy for them. Donkey put up a very good fight there, especially during the mid portions of the game. But the second they lost that one fight over on that Fire Giant side, it was curtains for them. And the Cold Llamas, they just take the game very cleanly from there.
I mean, for a team like Donkey Hoof, you have to win your fights. You can't go even, especially at this stage of the game. I mean, they haven't really shown their late game prowess just yet against some of these top teams, but they held their own for that first half of the game, even managing to sneak a Fire Giant in there, somehow miraculously getting that one without it being stolen early on.
Yeah, and there were some good plays overall from the team, both individually and as a team. And the stats don't really reflect too well onto them right now, especially onto Dinosaur 05 and 2. Didn't really have the game he was looking for, really struggled to get initiations off in that early game. But Preds, 2-4 and 2 doesn't do him justice. I thought he had a fantastic game on the Nemesis, especially when he was looking for those early and mid-game solo kills, and then looking for those those team fight pickoffs in that more sort of late game. Did very well against Fails specifically. I felt like Bevy Monster was okay as an initiation, as a frontliner. Gunter, I felt, was a tiny bit too anonymous for my liking as a Raijin. Just didn't have the power in his build to really back up this pick.
For me, what it felt like was they just couldn't get a handle on that dual lane. I mean, Genetics and Streaka really just kind of got to run away with the game. As many times they tried to kill Genetics early on, as many times as Genetics just put himself out there, said, hey guys, come on, why don't you want to fight me at all? They just allowed Genetics to sit there in their jungle the entire first half of the game. And that first failed kill around the level 8 mark, I think it was for Genetics, I felt like that was kind of the telltale of how the rest of the game was going to go.
Yeah, and the Cupid, you pick him for damage in the early game, you pick him to be the lane bully, only puts up 9,359, but that just comes down to the fact they couldn't get the pressure against Genetics Terra. It just all comes back down to that one pick. You know, it really caused headaches for them in the early game, put a wrench in the spanner, or put a spanner in the works of their plans, and Fails on that Humbat in the early game also caused problems for the Guardian. Dinosaur also caused problems for Preds, forced to use beats early on, couldn't get that blink as his first relic. So just a couple of changes to the draft, a couple of different bans, maybe holding on to the Sobek and Amaterasu until a bit later on. And who knows, that could have been a game 1 victory for Donkey Hoof.
Well, we'll see if they can make an adaptation here going into game number 2 as the picks and bans are ready for you guys going into the second matchup. And for me, if there's 2 gods you don't give Genetics, it's Horus and Terra. I can't imagine that they're going to allow Genetics to have another comfort pick. And I felt that the Sobek was so early of a pick for them. And because we know how much Genetics likes to play Terra, it was just the perfect counter matchup for him.
Yeah, you take Sobek to stop teams picking Yemoja, but with Terra now back available and, you know, able to be played a competitive play, they just go, oh, I'm not going to take the Yemoja, I'm going to take the Terra instead, because Terra does a very similar job, but has a much better matchup into the Sobek.
And a lot of it just does come down to that passive. When you have those walls, when you have that monolith down, you can't be tossed around. You're immune to knockups, you're immune to knockbacks. There's just nothing that can really displace you in the midst of the fight. And that's the important part with it. Speaking of displacement, both Yemoja and Hercules taken off the board by Donkey Hoof.
Yeah, at this point, they'd banned out the Merlin, they banned out the Morrigan and their third ban, but Cold Llamas are going to be taking... the Cold Llamas were first pick last time, and they elected to take away the Morrigan and the Merlin. So Olaron could be taken away here by Donkey Hoof. They thought that was kind of a big issue for them, and I think in objectives, it was kind of a massive pain in their collective backsides, because the second that Sanctified Field came out, the tanks were isolated on a massive island.
Well, Cthulhu going to be the last god banned away by Cold Llamas. So no Persephone, no Morgan, and no Cthulhu, says Cold Llamas as we go into the first pick for Donkey Hoof. And if there's one thing I have to say that I've really enjoyed seeing the improvement of for Donkey Hoof in these 3 weeks up until just that last game, was their drafting has gotten so much more synergized with it. They said, this is what we want to do. these gods are good and they work well together compared to the more Frankenstein-style builds we saw in the very first week. Ever since then, it's just gotten so much better out of them. Ullr going to be their first pick to take it away from Streak Up. Cold Llamas answer in kind with an Amaterasu.
Yeah, that Ullr pickup immediately speaks to me. If they want the early game pressure, they want to have what Cold Llamas had in game 1. They want that kill potential. They want to, just put the purple buff on their side for once. Merlin going to be taken away from Gunter. It's going to be on the side of Pretty Prime on the Cold Llamas. Amaterasu also taken away from Hoof. Again, probably going to be piloted by Maniac in this game, although we could see Genetics take this pick if Hoof elect to go into something like the Terror to take it away from him.
The Merlin last time banned away, this time left. Actually, last time I believe it was banned away by the Cold Llamas, but Pretty Prime going to be able to pilot one of his signature mages. And the Habwa, who was banned away second phase last time, will be picked up very quickly for Hoof, and the Horus pickup as well for them, taking a shot away from Genetics and putting that one onto their support, seeing if Dinosaur might have a little bit more success this time around.
Yeah, and it's going to be paired up with the Ullr in that dual lane. A lot of early game, probably level 1, maybe even level 2 kill pressure. The blink into the stun, into the knock-up. But then you also have the Ullr damage coming out on top of that. But it's going to be the Terror locked in for Cold Llamas once again. Left open, left available to them. Whatever it's broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Horus, a similar situation. Hebo also has struggles against the Terror, simply because a lot of their kit and a lot of their disruption relies on that knock-up initiation.
Very interesting on the Neath ban here. I assume that they're imagining that that's going to go onto Preds for the Habwa instead of into the mid lane.
Yeah, and Neath does synergize extremely well with the Hebo. Hebo can get some kills in the early game, but if he misses 1 or 2, it is very difficult for him to, come back into the game from, not getting those jungle kills, not getting those ganks off correctly, just falling behind levels. Neath alleviates that so much by just allowing him a guaranteed crushing wave or guaranteed Aegis to be taken away. And then from there, it's just a free gank for the Hebo.
Well, Fail's going to be showing us what they can do on this set, unless that's going into the dual lane hunter position like we've seen many a time before, but I don't think we're going to see the set ADC. I'm thinking Fail's going to be piloting that one in the jungle. Tyr and Raijin onto the opposite side, so it will be Preds piloting the Habwa in the jungle for Hoof. The solo lane Tyr with the support Horus rounds out their draft for Hoof. Cold Llamas now have option for their last pick.
All right, I was wrong. Raven.
All right. Well,
yep.
I jinxed it there. Streak Up's going to be taking the set.
I mean, you know what happens. Whenever you're wrong, it adds a counter. You have about 6 more times of being wrong until I take your job.
Oh, you want? I mean, by all means, if you want to take this job, go for it. I'll pass it over to you right now. Let me just grab the keys to the office real quick. The way I can. But
I got something. My oven's on. I left it on. Oh, no, I gotta go.
Well, into the game we go. Game number 2 here in this best of 3. Hoof on the back foot as they lost game number 1 to Cold Llamas, but a much more aggressive dual lane that we were kind of expecting last time around. Now they've got all the pressure that they need. I think the only thing that could have given them more would have been a Yamoja in place of this Horus, but they'll take the Horus for the support, and the Ullr now in their hands.
Just a quick note to the fans out there, this was all okayed with the admins before this game started. Unfortunately, Genetics was unable to continue on his main account, so this iGravy is still Genetics on his alternate account. It has been verified that this is his alternate account, and it's all been okayed by, by the admin, so it's still Genetics.
Yeah, so don't worry, you're seeing iGravy there. The gravy is actually just short for Genetics. I don't know how, don't ask me. That's just what he goes on to it. Interesting to note there is that Dinosaur went for the aggressive blink to try and get the Spirit Minion, but got stunned out before he could get the auto off, and then once he got out of the stun, Raiden was already too close, and he had to go for the Spirit Minion split. So losing the blink and now losing the beads for Hoof. All of the aggression and safety from this dual lane is just gone.
Yeah, just one play, and it's all gone the way of Cold Llamas. Terrific play, though, from Genetics. Just hold on to that wall clap. Don't use it aggressively. Use it defensively. That gets them the play. Fails looking for the invade. Doesn't get it off. Still going aggressive onto Press, because look who's here. It's Genetics once again. Looking for the aggressive players onto the jungle. Preds, one last hit. Wow. Pretty Prime takes it. And it wasn't about 7 minutes into the game. It's about 2. it's probably going to be a second kill here.
Looking for one onto Fails, and they will be dropped down with Streak Up in his rotation. It's just an arena matchup. The red buff is Genetics able to pick up a kill onto Raiden. Streak Up looking for Dinosaur. Is going to get the slow with the Skewer. But that's going to be the end of that. Genetics throws up the Monolith, and one more time we'll make the rotation back. So that was 4 kills for a red buff.
You play hard, you get loads of kills. That's the name of the game. You just walk and press W. I mean, and what's even more is that something we didn't really even touch upon is the fact that we have a set v Horus here. You know what that means? Their passes get stacked up twice as fast.
Yeah, but it's not as fun as having them on the same team. You just listen to the constant bickering between each other when you spawn in. Yeah, you always have that one teammate, you're like, oh my god, these guys need to shut up. But it's just so much fun with the little interaction we've seen. You see it with King Arthur and Merlin as well. You have them on the same team. They have their little conversations between each other. But 3 kills online early for Cold Llamas and the first blood bounty for themselves as well. It puts about 600 gold up over Donkey Hoof very early on.
Yeah, and Cold Llama's death recipient Fails wasn't one of the ones that picked up a kill, so out of the 4 players that they could have killed, I think Donkey You've got the raw end of the deal and killed the one with the least value. To get all 3 assists though, did Fails. Well, that's a big boom for the jungler. Doesn't miss out on much farm, and you can see how much wonders that's done for its Assassin's Blessing stacks. 35 compared to 19 in that jungle, meaning he's going to get that 5% extra movement speeds a lot sooner.
And having your extra movement over the Hubba, who isn't the most mobile of mages. Once he gets that little water scroll online, he'll be able to move a little bit quicker through the jungle. But until then, I mean, he's relying just on his base movement speed. And with tier 1 boots versus tier 2, and might be just another one on the board for Fails. He jumps right into Raiden's hands, or Raiden jumps right into his hands, I should say, and gets sent back to the fountain quickly. Level 5 now for Fails, and only barely over 3.5 minutes.
And Maniac almost gets a solo kill over here. The baby wants action going on in left and right. I mean, good rotation from Fails gets him that kill. Good play overall from the side of Cold Llamas. Baits in right into another bad situation. Pred's looking for aggression over here on the right side. Knows Maniac's ultimate is down, but Maniac does know that Pred's here. He has to know.
I mean, he is not moving up at all, and you can kind of see that Bevy's playing a little bit more up than he normally does. Usually Bevy's kind of further back, even closer towards like totem end of it when he's playing into the solo lane. So seeing him push that aggressively is kind of a call sign to Maniac. Just great player recognition, and beats down again, and no ultimate available for President Muning.
Beautiful.
The knock-up out of that one. Fails. Can be picking up 1 kill. Might look for another one as Bevy is forced to use his ult, the Lawbringer, back to the tower. And Gunter has to use his Thunder Crash just to get away.
Yeah, just couldn't affect that fight whatsoever. And Pred's, a good start of the last game. Already down 2 deaths in 5 minutes. And this is how you stop all those sort of late game hyper carry junglers. Just sit on them early as possible, and Fails has done a terrific job of doing so far.
Yeah, 1-1-4 on the jungler, but put an extra death on the side. A pretty prime puts him to his first death. 2-1-2 now. Onto the mid laners. Gunter picks up a solo kill in the mid lane.
And, well, that's a good thing for the Donkey Hoof boys, because that gives them some sort of lifeline. Gives them a lane where they can start to play around. And Gunter, I sort of was a bit harsher on him in the last game. Didn't exactly have the stats which you would expect from a Raijin, especially for one that you pick to do the damage for your team. Gets off to a good start here in this second game.
They get the ball rolling early. Dinosaur trying to get something rolling for his team, but the axe toss out of Raiden is just off the mark. Takes a good chunk of damage from the Skewer out of Streak Up. But thanks to Genetics being a Terra, drop the Monolith down into the back. We get to see a little bit of an instant replay onto it, and that's just the classic tale of, Percussive Storm with Raiju combo. Thunder Crash in and using the ultimate just for safety to make sure they can get the credit for that kill. So, Gunter, but rotation from Preds. Look for something here. Gonna throw down the water scroll, but the knockup's gonna miss because of a quick teleport out by Streak Up. They'll be able to get away.
Yeah, just an unfortunate decision by Preds. It wasn't a decision he had any influence on. It was just one that he was going to make either way. He just got caught out on a ward the second he starts to walk into the lane. If he goes around the top from the entrance to the purple buff, he doesn't get caught by a ward and actually manages to get a successful gank off there. Just, the small unfortunate plays there cost Donkey Hoof would have been 1, maybe even 2 kills.
And again, it comes down to what we talked about last week with Preds, is he's been making a lot of very predictable jungle pathing rotations over to this dual lane specifically. He kind of takes the same option every single time. Because of that, teams have recognized that around X minute in the game, Preds is going to come here. So as long as I have that one little ward up there, I can make sure that I can spot that he's walking there. I need to see some kind of mix-up from Preds making these jungle rotations.
I also want to see some form of rotation from the rest of Donkey trying to stop Maniac killing Preds behind his own tier 1 tower in solo lane. But it looks like that's not going to be forthcoming. Blue buff going to be taken away and given over to Genetics on that Terra. And Dinosaur goes in, misses his stun, eats a root for his troubles, and Preds has to back off without having influence on this little invade once again.
Bevy's gonna shove Maniac around, but now Bevy, half health, Lawbringer down. Perfect wall out of Genetics. He didn't just read the book, he wrote the book. He said, "You're landing here." Drops the stun down. Perfect kill for Cold Llamas.
Assault over on the left-hand side, gonna land down. Gunson's being brought over with him, but they're gonna miss. Out where Streak Up is, Thunder Crash over the wall, gets it, but teleports away with the Sandstorm. Streak Up still has, you know, that Kickslayer ultimate going on top of himself, as she used to just try kill Raiden earlier. And, well, that's gonna be a good play. They stack it, just ultimate for ultimate trade, but I think I fancy, I don't fancy Preds here.
Preds does manage to get the 1-for-1, so it's worth it for him since he's been down so much already, getting extra kill on Pretty Prime. Kimito said, I didn't think he was going to get it there on the tail end of it. I thought Fails was going to be more than enough, but that little water scroll out there giving him that extra movement speed and most importantly, the slow immunity, so that way the Piranha Onslaught doesn't keep him from chasing down his target.
Just one small wet basic attack later, and he dies mid-fire, but gets it off, and that last little bit just kills Pretty Prime. Unfortunate for Pretty Prime, but good. I'd say half good play by Preds. Doesn't necessarily need to dive there, but the second he committed to it, got the outcome he needed to make it worthwhile. Still 2 levels down, doesn't have access to a speed buff for a bit. Heavy monster, unfortunate play there. If he gets that off, he still takes some minutes into the tower. Maniac doesn't take any tower damage. It's just a bit more of a flashy, psychological play if he gets it off.
It's just kind of the mental game. It's, you know, look what I can do. I can pull off these Blink 180 pushes, and unfortunately now Preds has to run away yet again. Desing offensive does land, fails. Gonna get the damage off alongside Maniac, and that'll be the kill onto the jungler one more time. Maniac at half. Dinosaur's gonna get 2-man knockup from it, but no more to be gained as there are 4 players from Cold Llamas here staring down. Now 3 for Donkey Hoof. Bevy trying to make a rotation around the backside, but unable to find a way in. Dinosaur manages to get the dash back to Gunter to get out of the walls.
It was on the red buff in the first game. Now you can see the target's been made pretty clear here. It's going to be the blue buff over on this right-hand side. So no mana for Bevy Monster on this tier puts him at a disadvantage in the lane. No real safety in the right-hand side of the jungle means Preds has to play quite passively in this game. So you're knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone here if you are Cold Llamas. You're getting rid of one of the problem childs in the early game. With the tier, being very difficult to lock down and can, really cause problems in that mid and late game when he starts to rotate. But you're also checking off the stop heat buff from getting online box.
And I mean, at this stage for Bevy being, not necessarily so far down, but about 11.5 down of Maniac, is this movement speed build the path that you go into?
I'm not so sure personally, but I feel like, the second he started to build that tier 1 blade, second he built Blink and finished his boots, he was still within touching distance of Maniac, and once you started those items, you sort of committed to the build and the playstyle. Otherwise, you're just, selling your boots and selling your first tier for a more defensive item. At that point, you just wasted too much gold in this early game.
I still feel like maybe after the Relic Dagger, you stray away from the build. You go a little bit more protection-oriented or something like that, but instead he's made the commitment to go into another one of these Ancient Blades and has made that full commitment to go towards the more health movement speed build. Maniac, very low in mana. Preds has to use his ultimate as well as Gunter, and they'll get a kill onto Maniac, being very greedy in the back line, but Fail's gonna dive right down on top. Bevy gonna miss his own Fearless onto Fails, and that'll be a 1-for-1 trade. Jungle for solo, so it doesn't favor Preds on that because he got the credit for the kill being so far down.
At this point, I think if I'm Preds, I'm requesting that Dinosaur is with me for every single camp, because I need some protection. I need someone here to help me.
And luckily for him, he had Gunter with him, so the two mages able to take down the solo laner, as Maniac hasn't really built into magical defense just yet, so still taking a relatively high amount of damage from these two mages, and it's only going to get worse for him if he doesn't get that magic defense on early. Gunner and Dinosaur gonna go ahead and take down the Oracle Harpies, get some vision onto the Gold Fury. Still no objective play out of these two teams just yet. Very quickly that could change. They do have a Merlin on the side of Cold Llamas.
Merlin always one of those cards that can win you the game by himself, especially if he's rushing into quite a high damaging build. Had to get onto that Divine Ruin early, considering you see the gods to the other side of Donkey. If you have Dinosaur, which is able to heal the team, Preds is going to go into a bit of Bancrofts early on, a bit of lifesteal early on. But you have Bevy Monster, who's on the tier, who's going to have to sustain in his own kit with that defensive stance power cleave. So the Divine Ruin early on makes sense, and it's just, what is he rushing? Power. Pure power with that Doom Orb.
A little bit of... a lot of power. I was going to say a little bit of power. No, that's a lot of power onto that Doom Orb. Especially this early on into the game. There's not a whole lot of answer for it. With the Divine Ruin very early, as you said. Oh, knock up out of Preds. Just a little off the mark from grabbing Streak Up. Again, onto the set ADC now chasing down Raiden as he's forced onto the tower. Those are spawned under just to get a little bit of extra poke on Raiden, but that's going to force him out. And the Kingslayer ult is down. Maniac using his ultimate aggressively onto Preds. It's going to get the purification beads early. And Dinosaur manages to find a way back in with that dash. Wrapping around the back now, Raiden as he rejoins the team. Straight Up takes a bit of poke and uses his purification beads. But so low is Raiden and Preds. They both have to back away, but Bevy's made a rotation.
Bevy's made a rotation. Maniac made his presence felt earlier, and Golfio is going to be started up here by the Cold Llamas. But look, who's still looking for the fight. It fails. Ult in the wrong position, but blinks away in time. And that's just going to put Preds into an awkward spot. And Genetics gets the kill, Gunter over the wall, looking for the Tychotrons, brings people into Doom, but the Doom is just staring at the wall.
And the Doom isn't very much for him. They get the kill on the Preds, is what they were looking for. A bit of an ult bait out of Fails. He goes right into place and quickly blinks away. And getting away from Preds, but Genetics is going to dive right down on top. 5 versus now 2. Gunner manages to find a way out for the moment, but very quick skewer over the wall from Streak Up will make sure to answer that question. That's 3 more down, making a 4 for 0. And Maniac's looking for 1 more. Streak Up will team up. Gold Fury manages to get a kill amongst the fight MVP for the team. And, well, we might as well make it a clean and even 5 fall down on the side of Cold Llamas to bring their kill count up to 14 on the board.
Yeah, the first game was a bit of a struggle for them. The second game so far looks relatively easy here for Cold Llamas. I mean, they're turning on the style with the set ADC pickup. It's done wonders here against the Ola Raiden, taking it away from Streak Up. Streak Up went, I'm going to play something even more aggressive and see how you like dealing with being on the back foot yet again. And poor old Dinosaur, the second time he blinks in and gets a good stun off is the second time he just instantly melts. The first time, at the very beginning of the game, he survived, but this time, it was just unfortunate. We see exactly how someone died to the Gold Fury.
Well, just doesn't get out of it in time. Poor Fails. He was the one that ended up taking it at the very end because of a quick blink out from Pretty Prime to swap the aggro onto. I said that when I was like, wait, who was it again that died to it? And it was Fails who ended up falling to the objective. And no credit given to anybody on Donkey Hoof for it. No assists or anything to their name. So just a clean kill for the objective so far.
And it's 14-4 on the scoreboard, 15.5 minutes in. And if you think the gold is telling one story, just over 6,500, you can see the experience difference is telling an even bigger one, 8,600. With no signs of slowing down here from the side of Cold Llamas. They want something more. They want this mid-tower, or they even want the Pyromancer. They'll take whatever they can get at this point.
And Dinosaur cannot catch a break. Every direction he goes, there's somebody from Cold Llamas waiting for him. He
again.
walks around the wall, gets hit by Genetic Stun, tries to go back to the other side, gets hit by Pretty Prime's pull through, managed to dash all the way back in tower, and then who else but Streak Up to be there? Pred's going to make a very quick ultimate out, but that long-range route out of Fails will catch him with the 9-hand Shadow Fist. And Raiden now trying to take a little boxing match against Maniac. He doesn't want to, and luckily for him, he's got Dinosaur already channeling that ultimate, and the two of them are going to run out as quick as possible. Let's string up over the wall into the Kingslayer. He will go, diving right on the Skewer on the Raiden. A little bit of healing out of Dinosaur and the stun. Make sure to keep him through, but Fails doesn't care about one lone Horus, and he'll pick up a double kill under the tower. 2 more for Cold Llamas, makes it not 17 on the board. And they no, just add a tier 1 tower to the mix.
Yeah, tier 1 tower, not just 1, but 2. Tier 1 tower mid also fell down. Nothing too much that Gunter could do about that by himself. And all 5 members of Cold Llamas are going to be grouped up here on this right and left-hand side, right-hand side for them to go for this tier 2 tower on the duo side. Maybe even look for the Phoenix afterwards. Maniac's going to go back to base. Doesn't have access to that teleport, and I think if that teleport was up, that the Phoenix could have been on the cards, but without that Amaterasu there with them, to kind of safely back off, spend up their gold, and look to push their advantage even further.
Yeah, especially with how potent that Shogun's Kasari is now for Maniac, as he's finished that item up. So that's going to allow Fails to attack faster than he already is. Strigov's going to get that extra little bit of attack speed as well, and never hurts to give the Mage Pretty Prime a little bit of extra boost onto that one. So now that the magic defense is online for Maniac, so if it already felt like he was unkillable, now he's even more unkillable to the 2 people who have to target him the most. And Dinosaur, again, cannot catch a break. Everywhere he goes, all he sees is Cold Llamas, and he's looking at the grayscale screen once again. Preds look like he's safe for a moment, but then I forget Fail's existence to the game, and he'll pick up his 2nd double kill, or maybe 3rd double kill at this point into the game. Another one on the board for Fails, 5 in a row for him.
I think Fails is just sick of seeing Preds alive at this point. The second he sees that Hebo is around nearby, all eyes focus from the jungle to the other one. As he goes, I am going to kill you. You are not supposed to be playing this game. Sit back on the bench, please. And Preds has just died 8 times already. The next closest person in the game is Raiden on 4. And it's just been almost a targeted effect here from Cold Llamas. They want Preds to have no part in this game.
I like what Raiden's doing, getting that extra little bit of farm, because he knows he's going to have to be one of the carries for his team. But unfortunately, by pushing up onto that left-hand side, they allowed the Fire Giant to go over to Cold Llamas for no punishment whatsoever. 9 kills on the board for Fails, 8 deaths for Preds, but 1 more onto it, and you can almost say that Fails got credit for every single one of those deaths onto his opposing jungler. And I mean, Preds is just... this is the answer to Hobwa in the jungle, is you just pick a Robin and you sit on him.
You pick anything that doesn't mind getting up close and personal to Hebo. I can do so reliably and just go, here, you don't play this game anymore. I have your jungle. And without any form of answer from Donkey Hoof, because there's not much Dinosaur can do either. They have to play in tandem with Preds, and one person looks for the stun, waits out the overhead kick, and then goes in with the water spout or the stun. But by the time it comes off, Fail's going to have his ultimate back up online for a 2nd bit of CC immunity.
I mean, I like the Horus pickup for Dinosaur this game. I just don't like the fact they gave Genetics Terra yet again, as we said in Picks and Bans. That's one of his best gods is the Terra, and I don't know why, after he was just put on such an onslaught in Game 1 with it, that they let him have it again in Game 2.
Maybe that's just Donkey Hoof not giving enough respect to Genetics Terra. Maybe they just felt like the reason it was so successful is because it pretty much hard counted and neutered Dinosaur on Sobek. So if they take the Horus instead, it might have a bit of a better time, especially if they get that level 1 strategy to work off. It just never came about, and Dinosaur's got into something very aggressive in that upgraded Frenzy for the rest of his team, and it looks like it's working out for them. Raiden gets a double kill. Thanks to Bevy Monster on that positioning with that tier Fearless.
A very aggressive dive in by Maniac ends up costing Cold Llamas 2 deaths. As Donkey Hoof are able to keep pushing in, they hold that left side Phoenix, and they now have the advantage to start pushing up themselves, looking to target out this mid-tier 1 tower.
Yeah, and the mid-tier 1 is not got much left on it. I think that's just going to be taken out very, very quickly here on the side of Cold Llamas. No longer going to have that safety when looking to attack the Fire Giant with the Gold Fury. Left-hand side looks like it's going to be a push-up as well, just a split push effort from the team. But no, looks like all this going to be making its way back over to the mid lane. And here, see the replay exactly how this defense happened so easily here for the side of Donkey Hoof.
Raiden gets 1 quick pick, but most importantly, that wraparound from Bevy getting a 2-man Fearless straight into the hands of Raiden, able to get a beautiful bladed arrow, and then the hail of arrow combo off on the top of it. I mean, that's just the 1-2 punch is all that you need for him.
Yeah, the second that Prime got hit by the part of the Fearless, he was just instantly dead because Raiden put all his damage onto it. And Prince is happy to see that Raiden's eating some of the Raven damage rather than himself. But Raiden does have to use his Aegis to get out of it.
And with that relic down, that's going to make this a lot harder for the carry. They can now make a much more aggressive dive into the backline. Either Maniac or Genetic can dive in there, even Shriek Up if he really wants to make a super aggressive play. Now picking up the Sledge for his 5th item into the build on the Assassin.
And, well, Shriek Up is going to be very difficult to deal with in these fights. Got a bit of CDR onto him. Got a bit of penetration. I would say got a mix of percent and flat. But that Sledge, we all know how good Sledge is. You know, pledge to the Sledge and everything. It is ridiculously strong, and I think whilst you're playing a god like Set, who is naturally going to be finding themselves in the middle of 5 people, then you just get so much value from this item.
Pledge to the Sledge. I don't think I've heard that one before. I'm going to make sure to keep that one in my arsenal for it. But as you can see, 2 of them picked up here into the game with the recent addition to this item. Well, kind of a adjustment to it. Previously, the Masamune now onto the side of the Sledge. Gave that a little bit of extra crowd control reduction. Kind of has the similar feature with the passive of the Masamune, but just some adjusted stats that have made it such a worthwhile and really loved item by anybody wanting to be a frontliner.
It is the ultimate bruiser item because it gives you power, it gives you health, it gives you protections. It's everything you love in an item, and that extra bit of crowd control reduction is just the icing on the cake.
Where's my item that just turns my ultimate into an execute no matter what, no matter who I'm playing?
I will put it on the menu.
Put it in for the next Olympian meeting, because that needs to be in the game. I know that the people want that. We just want an item that just executes. Or in this case, you just play a late game Hobwa, and it's basically the same thing.
Okay. Let's put this experiment to the test. If everybody wants this item to be put into the game, an item with, if you buy it, your ultimate has an execute threshold, type Kappa in the chat. Okay.
Oh, God. Oh, okay. All right. Now you don't need to flood the chat with that kind of nonsense, because now you don't know if they're being serious or if they're doing it for the joke.
I mean, well, we get to see if enough Kappas are spawning, then then there's proof. You got your wish.
Well, we'll see how the chat reacts onto that one later on as Cold Llamas take their route over towards this Gold Fury that's set to respawn here in just a few seconds, about 15 before it comes back up. And it's getting the groove more than anything. Donkey Hoof on the back foot, or on the back hoof in this time around for them, as they kind of just have to sit at their tower lines. They really can't do much in these fights.
Yeah, they have to play very defensively, and their first defense on the Phoenix was really, really good. They pushed the onslaught from Cold Llamas back. They got double kill on the side over Raiden thanks to Bevy Monster, and they managed to pick up some towers and structures and put themselves in a position where if they get another one of those defensive stops, they're back even in this game. But Cold Llamas, they come refreshed. They're going to come in with a different style of attack, and they're going to go ahead and try and push down this left-hand side once again.
With Fire Giant around their waist, they're looking to split up the fight here just a little bit. Put the 2 assassins in the mid lane, everybody else on this left-hand side. Monolith dropped down by Genetics. They get a good stun onto Raiden. It's going to get the Blizzard on top 2 from Pretty Prime. Into the mid lane, the assassins in the solo lane and jungler for Donkey Hoof square off. Maniac going to get pushed around a little bit. Axe toss out of ring just off the mark. Looks like they're grouping back up over for a full commit onto this left-hand side. As Fails and Shriek have made the rotation in. Rain gonna get stunned out by the wall, and that calls for the dash from Maniac. Knocked out by Dinosaur, and the Terra's Blessing into the back end of it. Maniac able to get himself out, but I can't say the same for Pred. The Shriek Up manages to find the pickup and the double kill with another skewer over the wall. In with the Kingslayer. Fails able to pick up one. Maniac grabs Dinosaur with only Gunner left. Getting chunked down by that skewer damage. It's 1 versus 5. And I'm not sure if Donkey Hoof or just Gunder in this case is going to be enough to stop the Cold Llamas from taking this game. A clean 2-0 out of Cold Llamas to secure themselves their victory for this week.
Oh, that's just bullying, killing Gunther in the Phoenix. But 26 minutes, a lot quicker than the first game. Cold Llamas take the set 2-0, and well, back to the drawing board once again for Donkey Hoof.
Yeah, another week of struggles going up against one of the teams higher than them in the standings. This time, what we would probably call the lowest of the SCC. I believe that is the 4th seed out of Cold Llama this week, and they still got a little bit to go. They have that competition against Smiley Face, but they're still struggling when it comes to these top teams and the level of aggression that they're able to put out against them. I feel that's where they're struggling the hardest, is just these teams that W key at them.
Yeah, and it's not in the first game they managed to push back against the W key. They defended onto their buffs a bit better, but in this second game, the Hebo was left out to dry, and Fails just completely ran over him, had free reign of every single bit of jungle camp. And that's just the pressure that was brought out because of the fact that they got that early start in that dual lane. And well, Genetics didn't really have to worry about, running over and helping Streak Up. Streak Up was fine to be left alone, and that just let him and Fails run the jungle completely.
And a lot of that came down to the failed start in the duo lane from Dinosaur. Tried to get that blink to get the spirit minion, missed the spirit minion, couldn't get the basic afterwards, then gets stunned, and then ends up sharing it regardless. So he lost out on his blink, lost all the pressure that they could have had for it. And then not to mention 3 kills at the red buff just about a minute and a half later. I mean, it just started going downhill very early for this Donkey Hoof team.
Yeah, but definite signs of improvement. I felt like that draft in game 1 especially was incredibly strong. I felt like it just got undone by 1 pick, but they didn't identify that issue and look to change it in the way that I felt like it needed to be. I felt like the Terror should have been taken away and then draft something similar rather than looking to change the draft completely and then play against the Terror once more with a similar outlook on try to kill the Terror in the early game. It just didn't work out for them, at all. And you can see Dinosaur playing on the Horus, less than 3,000 damage. Raiden and Pred sitting just over 6,000. Bevimonster on 7,000. Gunther 10,500. Good performance by him on this second game on the Raijin especially. But the rest of the damage it just wasn't there for them because Preds had nowhere to go. Raiden was just sat under tower against Streak Up on this set because he had nothing to fear.
Yeah, unfortunately for Donkey Hoof, again, a much stronger draft than we've seen out of them into the past. I like the idea of this draft going through, but unfortunately, again, it just came down to the execution of it is where they've just been lacking these last couple of weeks. Again, fighting back a lot stronger against Cold Llamas than they did against the Poppies in week number 1. They still have another couple of big matchups they have to do. They have the Belt Slap they still have to fight against. I mean, they've still got Snake Pit they're going to have to go up against. I mean, it's not getting any easier here for Donkey Hoof. It's going to be a really rough rest of the split for them. But that's the end of set number 1. We still have one more for you guys tonight. Smiley Face, the other team rising up from the SOC. Now it's their turn to take on the Poppies and see how they can handle against one of the powerhouses of the EU SCC. We're going to take it to a quick break. When we come back, set number 2 will begin.